If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this.
Men and women of Reddit who caught their so cheating, how did you do that? And what was your reaction? My ex was a big drinker and I wasn't. She would frequent this bar close to our place pretty often with friends. I rarely went because I just wasn't a fan of bars or her drinking friends. One night she went out with a couple that I didn't mind that much. I was bored at home, so I decided to head over for a little bit. As I walk in, I see my ex sitting at the bar with the couple. The bar was packed, and as soon as I made eye contact my ex, she had this strange look on her face. She turns to this guy sitting next to her, and he immediately gets up and leaves. I felt something strange right away, but I brushed it off as me being irrational. I stayed for like an hour and headed home. I couldn't shake the feeling I had though, so I checked one of her friends' Facebook page to see if there was any connection that existed between my ex and this random dude. Sure enough, he was friends with one of my ex's friends. I knew his name now and that I wasn't as crazy as I thought. I sat on the information though. The next weekend she goes out drinking again and still had not returned home at 4 a.m. I tried contacting her multiple times and I got no response. I woke up to her coming home at 7 a.m. and jumping in the shower immediately. I decided to check her phone while she was in the shower, and she kept all of the messages with this same guy. Some pretty telling information in the text thread. While she was still showering, I grabbed a fresh pair of clothes and headed to my best friend's house. 20 minutes later, I get a phone call with her going apeshit about me leaving and not saying anything. I laughed at the projection, told her that if she wasn't moved out by Monday, the police would be there to force her out. She wasn't on the lease and her parents lived 10 minutes away from me. That was that. 4 years ago, I was dating a girl who became distant and disinterested in a lot of things we both enjoyed together. Despite attempts to talk about it, she only grew more distant, then became less available to hang out, and suddenly was working late a lot. I started getting suspicious about cheating when she was on her phone nonstop. Again, I tried to talk about it, but she wouldn't engage. She also just didn't want to break up with me for whatever reason. I was actually going to end it on my own, but one weekend when she was seemingly unavailable, some mutual friends told me they spotted her with a dude from her work and they were all over each other. Coincidentally, she had also lent me her iPad and it was synced to her phone, so I saw lots of texts between those two over that weekend. They were talking about running away together, etc. He was married and her supervisor. Mutual friends were also composed of her coworkers and reported them to our. They were both forced to do training on not sleeping with coworkers, they were both denied promotion, his wife left him, and she moved overseas. Sucked at the time, I was devastated, but karma got them good. This isn't my story, but my parents. My mom had a boyfriend when my parents met, and she broke up with him to be with my dad. Fast forward 10 years or so, my parents are married with 2 kids, my older brother and me. Anyway, she travels for work semi-often and she started taking trips to see her friend in Chicago. I was young enough that I don't really remember when it started, but I noticed that my dad was really irritable on these weekends. I think I was about 12 when I realized what was going on. I figured it out before my brother did. I used to sit at the top of the stairs and listen to my parents argue. I don't even remember if I heard something that gave it away, if it slowly dawned on me as I grew up, or if one day it just hit me. It's always just been a part of my life that my mom lies. Still is. My dad used to beg me to not say anything to her that I knew because A, he was desperate to keep the family together, and 2, my mom would get on his case for getting the kids involved. No joke. One day, during the summer after I graduated high school, I came home from work to find my mom in the garage loading up her car. I asked her why she was putting blankets in her car and she got quiet for a moment and said, "Well, I'm moving out. I just went inside." Later she texted my dad that she had moved to her brother's house. That's how he found out. They were married for 20 years and she sent him a fucking text message. I don't know if she was planning on telling me at all if I hadn't happened to come home when I did, or if she would have just disappeared. There have been times when she left without telling me she was going somewhere. I'd realize that I hadn't seen my mother in a few days and ask my dad where she was and he'd be like, "Oh, she didn't tell you. She's in Montreal for a week." Or something like that. So anything possible. I was 8 months pregnant with our second child at the time and he wanted to go visit his brother for the weekend. I asked my doctor if it was safe for me to travel and she said it would be fine. I told my husband I could go but he said he was really hoping to just have some time with his brother. I understood because a new baby really makes it hard to spend quality time, but I asked if he could take our older son, 3 at the time, so he could see his grandma and cousins. He said they were planning on drinking and whatnot and wasn't sure it would be a good idea. They're country boys, so think shooting, drinking and whatnot. I agreed and he left for the weekend. After he left I get a call from his best friend telling me that he'll be in town for the weekend and he wanted to meet up. Not weird, he called me because my husband was terrible at answering his phone. I told him unfortunately my husband was visiting back home, bad timing. His best friend then said, "Okay, I'm going to call you back." And hung up very abruptly. Turns out my husband and his wife had been caught by him a few months previously and he gave them a chance to make it right. I don't know why. He didn't tell me but threatened to if they didn't stop. Well, they didn't stop and he told me. I think the worst part was that my husband's family knew and never once thought to tell me. These people were my family for 5 years and nothing. It's been almost 10 years now and I'm so much happier, but it was definitely an eye-opening experience. Oh, story time. Classic love at first sight. I love you after 2 weeks. Moved in together after 2 months. Engaged after 6. Been together for 4 years and change. Left my rent control bachelor pad and picked a bigger apartment so she could have her art studio. Did everything together and split all bills 50-50. We had different jobs in the same industry and made around the same money. We really loved each other and, as cliché as it sounds, completed each other. I am very analytical and stoic and she is a liberal artist. She goes to Comic-Con in NYC, she is an expositor, I help her pack. I drop her at the airport. Everything was fine. No signs of anything. She should be back in 4 days. She never came back home. She simple disappeared. Ghosted. The day she should be home I freak out that she may be dead just to find myself blocked on everything. Email, phone, social media, the works. Everything I know is due to the bills she left behind, all unpaid. The credit card we shared, she stopped paying 2 months before, and her cell phone bill, which T-Mobile was nice enough to give me a log because technically was on my SSN. Found one particular NYC area code over and over on the call history and put 2 plus 2 together. She met him on San Diego Comic-Con few months before and methodically and systematically put together a plan to abandon me, take as much as she could to NYC and never look back. Plot twist. She maxed our credit card and Amazon card furnishing their new home in NYC. By the time grief turned into practicality it was too late for me to cancel everything. I literally had to log in and see all purchases of houseware, made with my money, for a house I will never live in. I could not live at our house or afford our lifestyle in one income alone. It was a good 6 months of blackout drunk, Tinder and overall self-loathe. I am sure I caused damage to other people in the process. It wasn't even the love part that hurt me the most, but the flat-out betrayal and economic damage took me over a year of living paycheck to get all balances to zero. She is a Redditor, if you were reading this Fry. I don't hate you, but you destroyed my self-esteem forever. I cannot ever trust anyone ever again. You ripped my heart from my chest, watched it die slowly and didn't care for the mess. Very unhealthy relationship. He was emotionally very abusive and I was in a terrible place with my mental health. I found out at the ultrasound to determine the gender of our child. He was late and I was noodling on Facebook waiting to be called. He was tagged in some photos in my news feed from a gig he'd been at on the previous weekend. Random lass was in all the photos of him and they were all over each other. Also they were making out in the background of one photo. He turned up after I was called in. While the technician was printing the images I told him I knew. He went off and on about how I was making it up, he'd never do that, obviously I was lying to compensate for cheating on him and so on. When I pointed out there were photos he stormed out and left me there. My dad had turned up during the appointment anticipating that he'd react badly if we were having a girl, which he did, that was scattered through the cheating denials and took me home. I considered us broken up at that point and stopped all contact except texts related to the pregnancy. Mostly I was relieved. I had concrete evidence that it wasn't in my head and I finally managed to escape that relationship. It was a day before my 18th birthday. My boyfriend told me he had planned to take me out in his Mazda pickup truck that we named Sparky and get some food from a bigger city down south. Make a whole evening of it. Went to school. Had a good day. Nothing was off. Came home and waited. Called and no answer. Waited. I got home from school at 3:30 p.m. and it was nearly 9:30 to 10 p.m. before I gave up. I got on the computer and found out through a mutual friend from school that he was at this other friend's house. We were friends with her and her home life wasn't the greatest, her parents were nasty disgusting people who treated their children like punching bags, and this mutual friend had been talking of moving out with her little brother in tow. I got in my mom's car, drove over there and found them having sex on the living room couch. I went home. Told my mom he wasn't allowed in the house, I wasn't accepting his calls and I was going to bed. I told her what happened and that I just wanted to deal with it in the morning. These days I went to bed early and woke up early. Next morning he came over like nothing had happened and greeted me. He tried to hug me and I backed away. He asked me what was wrong and I told him that he had missed my birthday night out because he wanted to get his ding-dong wet in so-and-so's woman parts. He accused me of stalking him. Cheating on him. Being a controlling B-word. Tried to do what is now called gaslighting. I told him I was done. He made his bed with her and now he gets to lay in it. That because he liked her better, obviously they needed to be together. I told our mutual friends that we had broken up due to some disagreements. Mutual friend our was inside of decided to spread it around school that she was a better lay than I was. So yeah. We got married when I was 17, and he was 21. He was shipping off to sea, and I was escaping a bad home life. When he came back after his deployment, he wasn't the same person anymore. After about 6 months, he gained weight on purpose to fail his physicals so he'd get kicked out of the Navy. Fast forward a year, I'm working full-time, and he is sitting at home, watching anime and drinking during the day, and telling me that he was applying to jobs. I was applying to universities when my laptop died on me. I asked to use his to finish an app, and while doing so a message popped up on his FB. A topless pic of his ex, from her. I was shocked and opened it to find that they'd been dating for a long time, started again while he was at sea in the Navy. He would talk to her and never to me, saying that he never got the time to email. She had sent him a pic because he had said how he missed having big tits like hers to play with, and how mine were just too small so he felt like he was fucking a boy or a child. I confronted him, he made a bunch of pitiful excuses. I had my friends come to the house that day and kick him out while I went to work. He then stalked me for the next few years, and made posts on his FB about how I was a coward. He sent emails and called from blocked numbers to tell me that a restraining order is just a piece of paper, or that our vows before God made me his property, and shit like that. Then he bought a gun, and started telling our friends that if he can't have me no one can. I ended up talking to our friends, and told everyone conflicting information about where I was going, and moved states. I deleted all my personal social media accounts and lived in fear for years, watching him continually make memes about how he loved his wife and would do anything for her. It took 8 years for me to finally get the divorce from him. In a relationship for 6 years, broke up 1 month before our wedding because I found out my fiancé had cheated on me. 2 years into my relationship with my then fiancé, lots of suspicious little acts kept adding up. The biggest one being that I found some condoms were missing from my drawer. Confronted my fiancé at the time. I was very sad, angry, confused. She denied any affair. 4 years went by, and about a month before our wedding, she broke down and confessed that she had indeed slept with her ex-boyfriend at the time because she was depressed and was simply seeking any sort of way to feel something else. That broke my heart. I was also in the middle of an insane work day from home and had to power through the rest of the job with that on my mind. Not fun. Anyways, I had always had a bad feeling that she had been lying to me over the years, and she had an undying jealousy towards all of my friends who were women. She was clearly projecting. It hurt bad that she had cheated on me, but hurt way worse that she had lied to me for 4 years and went along with planning the wedding. I'm grateful that she told me before the wedding, since we called it off due to the mistrust amongst many other things that weren't going well in our relationship. We met at a young age, so no big surprise. I genuinely believe that she was going through some really heavy emotional turmoil from her past, so I don't take it so personally. I wish her well. With that said, I have cut off all communication to her because I simply could not trust her after that. All's well that ends well. And have met the love of my life, and we plan to get married as soon as this COVID-19 takes a hike and it's safe to gather in groups again. Goes. My ex thought he had deleted the texts. I didn't usually go through his phone at all, but I had this suspicion that he was seeing someone else based on his behavior, his hiding his phone, and by staying later at work. I was actually really hurt, but mostly angry at myself for being stupid enough to date him. I had been warned he was no good, but I wanted to fix him, and I ended up getting hurt just like all the others. My reaction was initially asking him for an explanation. He tried to cover it, and lied to my face. I immediately told him to get the fuck out of my house, and so he did. Which he responded to this by saying some very personal things about me on Twitter. It was a really bad time for me, and I hadn't done anything wrong. But I picked myself up, got the courage to apply to a job at a larger company a few hours away, and ended up moving to a bigger city. It was there that I met my now husband. Couple years later, when I was first dating my now husband, he messaged me trying to make amends and said he missed me. I ignored it, and honestly it felt so good to be able to say no to him. I'm blessed actually. He sprung me forward and helped me more than he knows. Because if that hadn't have happened, I don't think I would have applied for that job, would not have left my hometown, and I don't think I would have met my husband. Universe has a funny way of making things work out, in the end.